Niliumia kwa kweli. Niliumia.
Yorha and Karim, my dear children, please forgive me. I made a foolish decision that day. I thought it would bring you the best, but it didn't. The true source of happiness was having you, my children. There's nothing more to say. The basic wish of every person is to have children, give them unconditional love, and do everything for them to live. But would you believe if I told you a woman who chose to get married over her children's lives? Yes, you heard that right. This woman left her small kids and went to be with a man. Sadly, her kids passed away. Why their mother did it? And what happened to these kids? In the ears of many, it sounds like a terrible choice, but before you blame her, listen to her whole story.
Naitwa Fatuma Sefu Hamissi.
My name is Fatuma Sefu Hamissi. I was born in Tanga, but now I live in Kinyerezi. I'm not a mother anymore. I used to be, but now I'm here all by myself. Fatuma was born and grew up in Tanzania in a simple family. She went to school but couldn't complete her education. This made her life tough. As a girl, she couldn't have a place to escape from the guys who were interested in her. This is very common for every girl, but everyone has a unique image on this topic.
Nipitia changamoto nyingi sana.
I faced a lot of difficulties in my life, especially in matters of love. I dated several guys, some of whom came and went quickly. However, I was fortunate to find my true love and we got married. Later, we had 2 children, a girl and a boy. Unfortunately, my husband passed away, leaving me with just our 2 kids. Life got even harder after my husband's death. I fell in love with another man because I needed help to provide for us. But this was a tough situation because everyone I met wanted my love, but they were not happy to see my children. This was a big challenge for me and I continued to persevere. However, my efforts failed because even though I had relationships with different people, no one was happy with my children. Because she was always around and met various people, she didn't avoid meeting guys who wanted to marry her. Unfortunately, this eventually led her to make a very big mistake that she would feel sorry for throughout her life. I kept meeting guys who wanted to marry me, but the last one made my life really tough. I had to make a very hard decision and I had no choice but to send my children to live with my relatives so they could be safe and respected. I sent my children to my uncle for their safety. Honestly, since then, I didn't know how my children were doing because the man I lived with treated me very badly. He didn't let me go anywhere or use the telephone. If he found out I had gone somewhere, he would beat me so much that I was too scared to check on my children. I left my children when the youngest was 2 years old and the oldest was 5 years old. I went almost 6 years without any news about them. Not being able to keep an eye on her children's well-being meant the kids faced many dangers. Life was tough where they lived, and they were still very young. Even their mother couldn't figure out how to take care of them because of her new husband. After 6 long years without any updates about her children, she finally heard some news. However, the news she received left her feeling incredibly sad and lost.
Nilienda sokoni. Nikakutana na mtu ambaye tunafahamiana.
One day, I went to the market when it was still possible to leave home for such reasons. At that time, I met an old friend who told me that my children had passed away. I felt overwhelmed in that market, and people tried to comfort me. My uncle's home was far away, and I informed my husband that I had heard about our children's death. However, he was very cruel at that time and treated me in a way that no one would want to experience in such a situation. I never got a chance to investigate or find out more about my children's deaths because my husband locked me in the house and said that my concerns about the children were not his concern because they were not his blood. Imagine yourself in her situation. Think about being without any news about your children for a long time and then suddenly realizing that they are all gone. On top of that, not even have the chance to find out more about their death. This is what happened to Fatuma, all because of her husband.
Nilijaribu kwa kila njia
I tried everything I could to find a way out, but I couldn't. My husband had a drinking problem, and even when he stopped me from leaving, he would get drunk and hurt me physically and emotionally with hurtful words. Later, I discovered that my children were going through a very tough time, and they couldn't even go to school all that time. They ran away from home and ended up on the streets, where they were young and had no one to help them. Sadly, they passed away while living on the streets. I always blame myself for what happened to my children. The last words I remember my oldest child saying to me were, "Mom, I love you so much." She said this to me on the last day I left them at my uncle's house. That was the last time I saw my children in person. Fatima's life turned into a never-ending nightmare. Filled with sleepless nights, she constantly blamed herself, and what made it even worse was that the man she was with didn't bring her any peace even after she lost her children.
Sababu ilifikia stage nyumbani pale pale nakuja na watu.
Honestly, my life felt like a living nightmare. As long as I was going through that pain, my husband didn't stop hurting and tormenting me. He started bringing other women and girls to our home, even sleeping in my bed. Whenever I spoke up, I faced physical abuse. Eventually, I realized I couldn't endure it any longer, and I had to escape to save my life because he was a very cruel person. I first went to Kibaya, to my uncle's house, and they took me to the place where my children were buried. When I saw it, I knew for sure that my children were no longer alive. It was a heartbreaking moment, but at least I felt some relief knowing where my children were laid to rest. After everything she went through, she made the choice not to return to her husband. Instead, she started a small business to support herself. Despite all the challenges she faced, she always had an important message for many. I want to share some advice with all women and girls. Having a home and a husband can be good, but never prioritize them over your children. Men can sometimes be supportive and caring, like friends or brothers, but often they may not be willing to raise children who are not their own. Right now, I'm not ready to marry another man. I lost my children, who were my happiness, and I just want to be on my own. Maybe you're a mother with children but no husband. It's not always your fault. It can happen for various reasons. But if you ever consider marrying another man, be smart about the love you provide to your children before engaging in another relationship. And if you're a man and have the responsibility of raising a child who isn't your own, it's important to treat them as if they were your own. This is because the actions and choices men make can often make a big difference, even in matters of life and death.
Na sitarajia sifikiri kwa mtu yoyote ambaye anaona kipindi akafanya kama ujinga nilofanya mimi. Sababu nimefanya kitu cha kijinga sana. Nimesamini mapenzi kuliko watoto. Mwisho wa siku nimepoteza watoto wangu. Watoto wangu wa pekee kwa kweli. Irham mwanangu. Karibu. Popote ulipolala. Naomba unisamehe mwanangu.
Thanks for watching. I am Susan Bene, and this is Afrimax English. Please remember to subscribe.